Okay, so I'm going to add some squash and stretch to the ball bounce now. So what I'm going to do is I want to have a double hit. I want the ball to come down and hit, and then I want to, for better impact, I want it to squash not on this first frame, but I want it to have it stay on the ground and squash here on frame 12. So to do that, I need to basically copy this frame into frame 12. So I can go down here on my timeline, I can right-click on it and say Copy. I can go to frame 12, right-click on it and say Paste, Paste. And I've got a duplicate of that frame there. Now, if we play this back, it looks like that. You can see that extra little bit of stick at the bottom. Now, if you look at the graph editor, you get this kind of funky curve here, which is really ugly looking. But because it's happening, there's no interpolation, because this is frame 11 and this is frame 12. There's no in-betweening between two frames. Even though it looks like there is, it looks fine. But if I wanted to fix that, I could just go here, select the frame, select this right tangent, right-click on it and say Tangents Flat, and it flattens that out to a nice small curve. Go back over here to this one, click on the leftmost arm, right-click on it and say Tangents Flat, and now we've flattened out that funky-looking curve there. Even though you can get away with anything between a frame like that. So now we've got an even curve here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to that frame 12, and we're going to go ahead and do our squash here. Now down the line, since I know what I'm doing, I would go ahead and set my scale key right here on frame 11, and then go and squash it in frame 12. But I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to do this in a slightly backwards way, because I think it makes what the hold key that we're going to set for the scale does a little clearer for you. That was an unclear sentence. Alright, so I go to frame 12, which is the second of the hit frames, and the first thing I'm going to do is hit R on my keyboard. So I've got my scale manipulator here, and I'm going to scale just in one dimension on the top, and I'm just going to squash it out. Now to get proper squash, if I go down in one dimension, I have to go out in the other two dimensions. If I just went down in one dimension, the ball would be shrinking, which is not good. So I can either go and do these individually, but why not save myself a little bit of trouble? And instead of scaling more this way, I'm going to hold down the Control key, and as I do that, it scales the other two dimensions. So now, and then I'm going to scrub this to see what I've got here. Okay, yeah, good enough right now. So without any hold key, we get the squash happening from the beginning, which is very, very ugly. So what I need to do is go to frame 11, and I need to reset my scale key here to 1. So no problem. I don't want the computer to interpolate a squash going all the way down. I just want the squash to happen right away in the next frame. So I go to frame 11, I go to scale 1, Y1, Z1, and because I have auto keying on, it'll key all those. Now the ball holds its scale all the way to frame 11, and on frame 12 it squashes. Now the next thing we noticed about, if we look at it from this view, is that the center of the ball is what the squash was built around. So it squashes up, and that destroys the illusion of the ball hitting the ground. So we need the ball to actually be in contact with the ground. So what I need to do here is go and move the ball down until it makes contact with the ground. And this actually moves the Y key down because it has to do that to compensate for the squash. But here we're getting a pretty decent looking illusion there. There we go, of a squash. Okay, now the ball does the opposite thing where it stays squashed on the way up. So, and then if you notice, we get to the end of our animation and the ball doesn't unsquash, it just stays squashed because there's no key telling it to unsquash. So I'm going to go back to frame 21, which is our up key, and we want the ball to be fully round by that time. So on frame 21, I go over to my scale channel, 1, 1, 1. And now if we play this, the squash then holds all the way through, but at least goes back to a round state here at the end. But I want stretch. So now what I'm going to do is go to frame 13, which is the frame after my bounce, when it's on its way up, and I'm going to scale it up. And then using that control trick, scale it in this way. Just adjust that so it doesn't get too... I want to maintain the same mass there. Alright, so here we go. And now we've got a pretty decent squash and stretch going on.